Shalom Israel, Shalom, Shalom. Brother Nakwam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut, giving, of course, all honor and all glory to Yahawah. By Shema Mashiach Malak Yahushai. Double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming for Mashiach Malak Yahushai. A hearty, mighty Shalom to all of the men of the Lord out on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, presenting their body as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there on the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Akwath out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in the households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom, shalom. And shalom to everybody tuning in live. HBK Ent, K Rock the Don, Ancients New, Why Don't We? Heaven 77, The Art of Today, Yafei Israel, Zebadia, Ban Yamyan, Servant of the Most High, Nehum Yasha'Allah, T. Sellers, Malak Nezer, Emily Jones, and everybody else tuning in, and that will tune in, Lord willing. The topic of this cold cut is, you see it plain, right? Genesis chapter 1 breakdown, the secret of creation, right? And as the cold cut channel gets resurrected, and I'm going back into these breakdowns, it's something I want to get back in the spirit of just breaking these scriptures down and really start from the beginning. I wanted to go into it last week, but the spirit had where another brother hit me up and said I should go into it. And I said, well, yeah, that's something that was on my mind to touch back on, right? Touch back on Genesis, the first chapter, go into Genesis, the second chapter, go into the third chapter, go into the fourth chapter, and break down these strongholds according to the spirit and power of Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua. Right? So let's not play any games. Let's get right into it, and to Genesis, the first chapter. Now, Genesis, the first chapter, deals strictly with the creation, right? The creation of the heavens and the earth. Now, let's go to it. Right now, Genesis, the first chapter, is where you get the main account of the creation, but you can also read about it in the book of Job. You can read about the creation in the book of Jeremiah in a particular verse or two. You can go into Second Ezra, the sixth chapter. You can go into the John, right? It goes into the creation. You can go into these various books, and you even Second Peter, the third chapter, deals with a particular component of the creation. But we're going to touch on it. Right, and this is going to, and remember, this was taught, this used to be a thing, right? And so-called white man school systems, this was taught universally, man. It was not something that you had to belong to a Christian school or a Catholic school. They didn't have those like that, man. This was something that was taught publicly to all of the children of men in the so-called white man's kingdom. And to the so-called white man, Esau removed the creation from the schools and began to teach his own wayward doctrines of natural philosophy and his understanding of the universe. Right? Let's creation removed. Let's see. Removed from schools. Right? There was a time when this actually used to be a thing, man. I want to break this whole thing down. See that? In American schools, the creation of Genesis, or the Genesis creation narrative, was generally taught as the origin of the universe of life until Darwin's scientific theories kind of became a new thing, man. It became a big deal. Right? In the United States, the Supreme Court had ruled the teaching of creationism as science in public schools to be unconstitutional, irrespective of how it may be purveyed in theological or religious instruction. So they said teaching the word of the Most High, the true account of the creation, is unconstitutional, and they began to teach their science and their natural philosophy. Right? Let's go to the book of 1 Timothy, the first chapter. Right? Or the sixth chapter, rather. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 6. And there's always been that art and that altercation between the true understanding of the Bible and how things are done in terms of astronomy in terms of geography, right? In terms of anthropology, the Bible covers those things explicitly and makes it plain. Then a so-called white man counters that with his own understanding. And all he has are theories, man. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and 20. Right? This is what the Apostle Paul warned Timothy about. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. It's like avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. So when Timothy was set up over these various churches, and if I'm not mistaken, that's Ephesus, right? When Timothy was set up over these different churches, he was warned by Paul about how to deal with these particular people, because Paul knew the men of that Hellenized lifestyle. He dealt with Epicureans, Stoics, philosophers in Athens. He dealt with those different men. He knew those men. He quoted them in some of his epistles. He knew that science that they would come with, man. Now, the word science, it just means knowledge when you go to the etymology behind it. But the Lord says oppositions of science, falsely so called. You know, and a lot of people will come with that to try to counter the truth, man. Evolution, where they say we came from monkeys, and there's no half monkeys, half humans to this day. And a lot of the so-called white men, he has theories, right? He has a theory, the Big Bang theory, the evolution theory, meaning there's no concrete evidence. He's just coming up with his own conclusion, man. But we're going to go into it and actually break it down what really happened, man. Genesis 1:1. There's no Big Bang. It was just randomly, and then something just kicked it off. That's ridiculous, man. I didn't even believe that growing up in the white man school system and the Big Bang. It just never made any sense. And it contradicts everything else he stands for. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Right now, we know we've gone into this in time past. When it says God, it's not speaking about a singular entity. This word God in the Hebrew is Elohim. Right? And you may see people say Elohim. Right? Now that word is Elohim in the Hebrew, which means the powers or the gods. Allah or Allah meaning God, and Yum meaning plural. You make it plural or more than one. Right? So it says Elohim, but it's Elohim, and it says rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, gods. So when you see that word God, chiefly in Genesis, the first chapter, it's speaking about Yahawah and the angels. They are the divine ones. They are the judges, the rulers, who the Heavenly Father has given authority to create the things according to the blueprint that the Most High had. All right. Now the Most High has everything documented to a T. Everything is measured, and everything has been calculated. So even the concept of the earth, how far away the sun is, the moon, all of these things have been calculated by Yahawah, and he has given charge to Yahawah and the holy angels to actually do the creation. Right? This is the book of Job, chapter 38 and verse 3. Gird up, I'm going to start at 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. So the Most High is about to get on Job. Gird up, not Slakia. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare thou if thou hast understanding. So the Most High proceeds to get on Job with these questions that no man can answer. He's telling him, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Right? Let me know, man. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or hath stretched the line upon it? So stretching the line is when it's essentially like taking measuring tape, right? When you build something, you calculate it. It can't even be off an inch. It can't be off a foot. It can't be off a meter, man. Things have to be done to the T. So in this creation, as we begin to go into it, just know that everything it's done precisely. It's no random event like the so-called white man says, man. This was a design. The concept of the heaven and the earth is intelligent design from a creator, Yahawah Bashim Yahushai, man. From everything you see, smell, touch, taste, hear, the things that you can't even see, smell, touch, taste, and hear, the invisible powers were done by the Most High, and done like a man who stretches a line with a measuring stick and measures how he's going to get this thing done. And then they formulate a blueprint, right? When you look at a blueprint, this is essentially not that the Most High has a physical, Slakia, not that the Most High has a physical blueprint, but this is so you can understand, right? To show you what this is, right, Salakia? Just to show you what this is. All right, this is a blueprint for brothers that may not know, or you may not have seen one. Yahawah and the angels were essentially given a blueprint, right? And a blueprint has the design of what it's going to look like, what they envision once all of the elements are put together. Once the wood is there, the steel, the bricks, the mortar, the cement, once all the nails, the screws, they have a vision and a plan. And they measure and they calculate how far this support beam is going to be from this support beam, how high the ceilings are going to be, how wide the rooms are going to be. They calculate this stuff, man, you know? And then they give it to a foreman and construction workers, and they put this plan into action. Architects design this stuff through counsel and wisdom, and they put it into the hand of a foreman who has men under him, huh? Right? If you look at a construction site, right? If you look at a construction site, which you've probably seen driving past, or you may have had occupation doing these things, but you always have the construction site foreman, right? And he's the one who's really calling the shots. He may have, like I said, he may have a suit on, he may have a different helmet on, but he's calling the shots. He doesn't create the blueprint, but he's in charge of leading the creation. Just so brothers can understand the concept of what's about to go down and this intelligent design from Yahawah Bashim Yahushai. The foreman, for lack of better terms, is Yahushai giving the orders. And these other men you see next to him essentially are the angels, right? That are going to be doing this work and putting this blueprint together that the Heavenly Father gave his son Yahushai. You see that? And this is where we find ourselves in the book of Job, the 38th chapter. When the Most High stretched the line upon it, he has the measurements, right? Verse 6, whereupon, Job 38:6, whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? And the cornerstone is the principal stone that you lay before you do the rest of the stones. It's the foundation, right? Here's the point I want. When the morning star sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So when the creation was going and the line was being stretched and the measurements were being completed, you had all of the sons of God that were there, and they were shouting for joy, man. You know, when you read the book of Ezra, at first Ezra, the 5th chapter, you read about, let me get that precept, about when we built the temple, there was a great shout, man. Right, let me just pull up the 16:11. There was a great shout for joy and mirth when the Israelites built the temple during the time of Joshua and during the time of Zerubbabel. Right, let's bring that out real quick. Like I said, Genesis is a very, very complex account in a creation. You can't just skim through it. You want to break it down in piecemeal. You know, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So I want to go into that account just to show you what Job chapter 38:7 is saying when it says, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. We're going to show you that exact same thing that happened on the physical level when you go to the book of First Ezra and the Apocrypha. Right, let's go to First Ezra. I believe that's the 5th chapter, and we're going to deal with it. And who wouldn't rejoice in their creation, man, as they're putting in work? That happens when you do home modeling, when you design stuff around the house, when you may build a garage from scratch, and you'll shout, man, at your labor. in terms of rejoicing, right? This is First Ezra chapter 5 and verse 57. And they laid the foundation of the house of the Most High, and the first day of the second month, and the second year after they were come to Jewry and Jerusalem. So we came back to build and laid the foundation, just like the angels and the spirits, they laid the foundation, and appointed the Levites from 20 years old over the work of the Lord. Then stood up, that's supposed to be Joshua and his sons and brethren, and Cadmiel his brother, and the sons of Madiabun, with the sons of Jodah, the sons of Eladan, with their sons and brethren, all Levites with one accord, setters forward of the business, doing what? Laboring to advance the works in the house of God. So the workmen built in the temple of the Lord. So you had men laboring to advance the works of the house of God. That's done on a physical level. And you're going to see this play out in the creation. Men that are, or spirits that are set up to labor to advance the works of the heaven and earth. Right? I'm going to jump down. Verse 59. And the priests stood arrayed with their vestments, with musical instruments and trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, had cymbals, singing songs of thanksgiving and praising the Lord according as David, the king of Israel, had ordained. And they sung with loud voices songs to praise the Lord, because his mercy and glory is forever in Israel. And all the people sounded trumpets and shouted with a loud voice, singing songs of thanksgiving unto the Lord for what? For the rearing up of the house of the Lord. So as they reared up the house of the Lord, the sons of God on a physical level sang and shouted for joy. How much more on the spiritual level? When the creation was going on, that same thing, man. That's how you know we're directly in tune with the spirit and power of Yahawah, man. Right? So that word God in Genesis 1 is speaking about Yahawah and the angels. It says, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Right? So during that creation, you have to visualize what was actually going on. It wasn't just a ghost kind of walking around and forming stuff out of, the earth and, putting stuff together randomly. You got to get into this thing, man, and know the spirit behind what's going on. Right? This is the book. Salaki, bear with me. Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. Right? Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. Right, bear with me. It reads, and to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world hath been hid in the Most High, who created all things by Yahawah Hamashiach. So the Most High did create all things, but he used Yahawah Hamashiach, just like a blueprint. It's created, or a floor plan rather, or architectural design. It's created by a man, but he does it through what? Through the foreman and the men under him, huh? So again, Yahawah, he's the foreman, and the men under him are the angels, and the Heavenly Father, this is his design. All right, let's go to the book of John 1 and 1. Right? Let's go to John chapter, it's like I went, John chapter 1 at verse 1. And let's deal with it, man. Because John 1 also explains the role and the handiwork that Yahawah had when it came to doing the creation. And that's something that they don't really expound upon in Christianity. Right? They don't go into the Hebrew or go into these different words to actually break down what it means. Because if you didn't know any better, you would think that it was a singular entity that did the creation by itself. And that's how we were. But the Bible says otherwise, right? John 1 and 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Really, when you go into that, it says the Word was a God, right? A power. It reads, the same was in the beginning with the Most High. Who's that? Yahawah. He was in the beginning with the Most High, because Yahawah is the first spirit that the Most High created. All things were made by him, And without him was not anything made that was made. That's plain. So all things were made by Yahawah. If there's something that was made, Yahawah did it. All right, he did it, plain upon tables. Right, that's as simple as we can get with it, man. Now let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 33:6. Let's get one more in that, just to put that nail in the coffin, to show that Yahawah is the one who indeed did this creation. The Most High, he's not getting off the throne. He's not sweating or laboring and putting his hand to the plow. He's the Most High. Right? Psalms chapter 33:6. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. So the word of the Lord is Yahawah. So by that entity, the heavens were made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. Right, let's go to Colossians. Colossians chapter 1. Right, Colossians chapter 1, we're going to deal with it. Right, Colossians chapter 1 and verse, I want to get straight to the point because we pretty much put that to rest to show that Yahawah is the one that did this thing, man. Colossians chapter 1 and verse 16. For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. So Yahawah is before all things because he's the one who created all things, man. Visible things, the sun, the moon, the stars, you understand, the mountains, the birds. The invisible things were created by Yahawah. Demons, righteous spirits, you understand, the wind, the elements. These things were made by Yahawah. Thrones were made, rulerships of kingdoms and principalities, dominions and powers and higher level angels. They were all made by him and for him. So let's go back to Genesis, the first chapter. And they were made for the pleasure of the Most High. Right? Because you may say, well, why would the Most High want to create all things? Well, who are you to question the Most High? How come the Most High didn't just sit back and, well, that's above your pay grade. You have no business. Who the hell are you to ask the Most High, why did he decide to do anything? Right? This is Revelation chapter 4 and 11. Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So he created this for his pleasure. And the Most High doesn't have to explain what his pleasure is. There is no secret book called The Pleasures of the Living God. Any accounts of Yahawah. There's no book on that. Even if you had that book, you'll bug out, man. I wouldn't even want to read that book, man. That'll put a demon on you. Your mind won't be able to grasp it anyway, man. The pleasures of Yahawah and his works and his hidden works thereof. Your flesh can't sustain all of that information, man. Right? Now, let's go back to Genesis, the first chapter, right? So now we understand in the beginning, right, God created the heaven and the earth. It's speaking about Yahawah and the angels. They created the heaven and the earth, right? And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of the Most High moved upon the waters. Now, when it says the earth was without form and void, it's speaking about the molecular, and I'm going to have to use some modern day terms just so brothers can understand, right? It's speaking about the molecular or the elemental stage of the earth, right? It exists in a fluid-like state, but it's the elements aren't put together, right? The elements aren't put together yet. That's what this means without form and void. When you look this up, let's see. I'm going to pull up a few definitions. Right, so here's a few definite words so brothers can kind of have some modern day terminology to understand. So here's the definition of fluid, right? A substance that has no fixed shape and yields easily to external pressure. a gas, or a liquid. So this is how the concept of the earth was at that time. No fixed shape. It's indefinite. You understand? You have to act on it and put these molecules and these things together, man. Right? So the Most High has the earth without form and void. But then you have to put those elements together. Right? That's why when you go to the book of, let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, the 11th chapter, it speaks about that. Right? Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 11. It's in its elemental stage. And there's darkness. And it's just all of the elements that are there. That's what that means in Genesis 1. The Most High created the heavens and the earth. Right? They're created. Like the earth is there, but the pieces aren't put together. It's like having a jigsaw puzzle, and you have all of the pieces, and they're scattered abroad on the table, and the lights are off, man. So that puzzle, I mean, that complete picture of what that puzzle will look like is there, but you have to put everything together, right? So it was created, but it's created without form, all right? And it's created, but it's created in void. So when you go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 11 and verse 17, it reads, "For thy almighty hand that made the world of matter without form, wanted not means to send among them a multitude of bears or a fierce alliance." Right. So the Most High had it's in its matter stage. That's the term that brothers may know about now, that may be familiar with now, but it's matter, or the elements. The Most High created those things, but he didn't put it together yet at that set time, until we'll see the Yahawah and the angels begin to start putting these pieces together to form the earth and to form the firmament and to form these different things that you see. Because everything that you see is made of elements, man. You know, even you yourself are made of matter and elements, right? You're made of the elements that were made in the beginning. You have carbon in you, right? You have water or hydrogen in you, right? In your bones is phosphorus, calcium. You have minerals and elements in your body. And the Most High created those elements and those minerals in the beginning. You understand? To be used to put his creation together. And that's what Solomon is explaining. He said that the Most High made the world of matter without form. Now, if you pull up the definition of matter now, let's see what they give you. Right? Because Solomon been knew that. Right? He wrote that thousands of years ago. Not a so-called white man. He's trying to claim right of discovering it. Okay, matter. Physical substance in general, as distinct from mind and spirit, that which occupies space and possesses rest mass, distinct from energy. And these are the so-called white man's terms, right? But the Bible been put it out there. So pretty much it's just something that occupies space. It's in its elemental stage. And that's what the Most High did, man. And that contradicts the Big Bang, right? Because the Big Bang is something where they say something was ignited or created, and then it made these things. But this stuff was the Most High created that. He created matter, molecules, and elements, and visible things to make things become visible, if that makes sense, right? And not only was the earth in its invisible molecular stage of matter, but there was also darkness upon the face of the deep. And I want to get a precept dealing with this in the book of Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 4th chapter. Right, we're going to deal with it. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 4, and I want to go to verse, I believe I want 23, if I'm not mistaken. Right, let's go to Jeremiah, the 4th chapter. Jeremiah 4 and 23. It reads, "I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form, and void, and the heavens, and they had no light." So Jeremiah is giving you another account of referencing the creation. The earth without form, right, and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. That's plain. Same thing in Genesis, the first chapter. Without form and void. It says, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Meaning the works of the Most High were not seen. See, when you read the word deep in the Bible, it's talking about waters, right? Speaking about the waters. You have, like Paul said, that day and night have I been in the deep, or deep calleth unto deep. The deep, when you read in the Bible, about 98% of the time is speaking about the oceans. So the Most High has the elements here and darkness there, and it's upon the face of this formless void work. It says, and the Spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the waters. Now, when you go into this word moved, it's really going into the Most High beginning to kick off the creation and move these elements together, right? When you move something, you exert energy, right? Now, this word move, let's pull this up in the Hebrew, right? It really goes into like the shake or a vibration to move stuff together, right? That's what it's going into. So it says rahab, right? That's how they're saying it, right? But it says to flutter, to move, to hover, to flutter, move, or shake. And you'll see this word, how it's being used in other precepts, right? Let's see, it says to be moved, with fear tremble, to tremble, right? It really means to shake. Like when somebody's trembling, they're shaking, right? You see this word being used in Deuteronomy 32:11 for fluttereth, all right? Shake in Jeremiah 23:9. So it's really going to shake or to flutter. Now, Esau, he calls that, and I want to make sure I'm getting these words right. He calls that vibration. Let's see. Let's see. Vibration. A rapid oscillation of a particle or particles moving back and forth. Right? Look at this. Quivering or trembling. Quivering or trembling. So now the Most High is beginning to, for lack of better terms, use Yahawah the angels to start a process of vibration, man, and start causing heat and moving these pieces together to be able to create these things, man. Right? It says, let's see, the act of vibrating, quivering or trembling motion. That's that exact word in the Hebrew. Right? When you look it up in the Hebrew, it says the same thing. To shake, flutter. It says to tremble. So now when it says it moved upon the face of the waters, the Most High is beginning to move these pieces together. Right? He's beginning to ignite, for lack of better terms, and cause a reaction with these elements to be able to bring this stuff to light and to be able to put these things together. Right? And again, this is so-called white man's word, vibration, but it's used to help you understand what's actually going on in the creation. Right? So let's go back to this in Genesis, the first chapter. So when it says the Spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the waters, it's dealing with Yahawah the angels, who's beginning to ignite, for lack of better terms, or cause a reaction on these elements. Right? So let's go back to that in Genesis. Right? Bear with me. We'll close that out. We pulled that up. And I always say, man, brothers talk about it. If brothers could see one account in the Bible, I don't hesitate to say I would love to see the account of Genesis and the creation, man, because it's such a beautiful, mysterious account about how these things were put together. So it says, in the Spirit of God, which we know is the Spirit of Yahawah the angels, right, moved upon the face of the water. So they're beginning to cause this vibration and friction, which produces energy, right? In a so-called chemical reaction or reaction. And this is where the Most High said, let there be light, and there was light. So as they're beginning to move, the Most High said, boom, let there be light. Because now, even if you go into how light is created, it links directly up with Genesis 1 and 2. Right? But Esau, he's not going to teach that in the school system. Light is literally created based off of Genesis 1 and 2. When it says the spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the waters. Yahawah and an angel stirred up the elements, which caused heat in a reaction. And the Most High said, boom, let there be light, man. And it brought forth that light. All right. Now let's see if I can pull that up. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of searching as well. How is light produced? Right. Now check this out. Look at this. Electromagnetic radiation, such as light, is what? It's generated by changes in movement or what? Vibration. Right? It's the exact same thing. Changes in movement or vibration of electrically charged particles, because that's a good word. He ignited them or he charged the particles. Right? He created it in 1 and 1, and then he began to charge it and amped it up and start moving and heating things up, man. Putting that vibration out, and then you got light, right? Because light gives off heat anyway, man. You know? So we can go in the Bible and you can bring this to your top physicist and your top so-called white man at the top Ivy League schools, and you can explain the concept of the heaven and earth with his own terminology, man, in the Bible, and he won't be able to deny it. But again, he's not going to bank in the Bible. It's a white man's book. Well, what white man knew all this? Right? What white man had this understanding and wrote the whole Bible? And when did he write it? All right, let me read this again. Electromagnetic radiation, such as light, is generated by changes in movement, right? That's called vibration, of electrically charged particles, such as parts of heated molecules or electrons in atoms, right? Both processes play a role in the glowing filament of incandescent lamps, whereas the latter occurs in fluorescent lamps. So that's how you get light. You move particles together and you create light, which gives energy. And that's what this is. In the spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the waters. He's charging up the elements. He's charging up the particles. That matter, it's now being charged up. Right? And this light is the light that the works of the Most High may be seen. Let's get that in 2nd Ezra, the sixth chapter. Right? Let's go to 2nd Ezra, chapter 6. Right? Now remember, that light is different than the light of the sun. Right? Sunlight is not the only form of light. Right? You have various aspects of light. Right? But the point of light in Genesis, the 1st chapter, is explained in 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 38. Right? It reads, and I said, so Ezra's about to give you another account of the creation. And I said, O Lord, thou spakest from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and saidest thus, let heaven and earth be made, and thy word was a perfect work. Right? And then was the spirit. So there's a sequence of events. The Most High created the heaven and the earth in its elemental stage, its matter stage. And that was perfect. And then was the spirit. Then Yahawah and the angels are going to charge these elements and start putting them together. And then was the spirit, and darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed. So there was no a man speaking. That's what that silence is talking about. Man. Then commandest thou a fair light to come forth of thy treasures, that what? That thy work might appear. You see that? So the Most High has a light outside of the firmament that this creation can be seen. So if you're from the outside, if you were, which it's not possible, to leave this firmament and look at the work of the Most High from the outside in, without no sunlight, that light is that light from the time of Genesis. If that makes sense, man. Right? Because again, when you come in the firmament, the only light that you have is from the sun and the moon and the stars. But if you leave the firmament and you were to look at this creation that the Most High has, that's the light that's independent of sunlight in the book of Genesis, the first chapter, that this work might be seen. Right? Yeah, brother saying, well, maybe that light was Yahawah. No, that light was not Yahawah. Yahawah, he's the one doing the creation. Well, maybe that light is the nebula, right? That's thousands of galaxies away. There's no account of the Most High making 10,000 galaxies and life, human life on another planet. God knows where, how long ago, man. And they're going to come visit the earth. And look, there's no account of that. So let's go back to Genesis, the first chapter. Right? I want to make sure I said I had a good amount of precepts. And then what we're going over, this is what scholars call cosmology. Right? Let's see if I can pull that. Cosmology. Which really, let's see. Cosmos, I believe that goes into stars, if I'm not mistaken. And ology meaning the study of. So cosmology, the science of the origin and development of the universe. Modern astronomy is dominated by the Big Bang Theory, which brings together observational astronomy and particle physics. So Esau's concept of cosmology is not a Hebrew Israelite concept of cosmology. Because, and we're touching on that right now, right? We're showing you how the Big Bang Theory is impossible. We're showing you how the Most High actually did the creation. We're showing you, what darkness is and what true light is. We're going into these different accounts. And just about every nation, if I'm not mistaken, they about had the same understanding on the concept of the universe. Until the so-called white man, he kind of started shifting things around, which we'll touch on in time to be, or in due time. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 4. And I'm going to keep going. And God saw the light that it was good, and the Most High divided the light from the darkness. And this happens all the time. This happens right now. Even on the spiritual level, the Most High is dividing the light from the darkness, right? The wicked are being severed from the righteous. The Israelites were told to be set apart from the Canaanites. The concept of being holy and being set apart goes back to Genesis. The Most High always deals with division. Right? How come the Most High didn't just have the light and the darkness kind of just doing their own thing? The light, you can get along with the darkness coming to the light. No, the Most High doesn't deal with that, man. The Most High, he's a God of division and separating things. Just like the Most High divided us. We're the light from the darkness, meaning these other nations. Right? And their wicked works. Verse 5. And the Most High called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So again, your day begins in the evening time, right? The evening and the morning were the first day. Let's read on. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So a firmament is pretty much an expanse, right? To separate the waters above from the waters below, right? Now you may say, what do you mean waters above? I thought all of the water was under the sun. No, there is water above the firmament. Now this firmament is a strong like a looking glass. See that in the book of Job. Let's go to Job chapter, I believe that's 36, if I'm not mistaken, 38. Right? We're going to deal with the firmament. And I'll touch on that, man. Let's go to Job. The Lord said it's strong like a molten looking glass. It's like I want Job believe that's 36. So what Esau is it's like what Esau's going into is Esau, he likes to explain that, you know, you could just up and leave the atmosphere and you can go to Mars and send robots to Mars. Slovakia 37. And you can send damn drones to different planets. I mean, he's really making that up. Right? This stuff that the so-called white man is going into, it just, I'm gonna just tell you plain upon tables. He's making it up. Right? Because it doesn't link in with the Bible. Job chapter 37 and verse 18. It reads, "Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass?" So you can't just go and walk through glass. If you got a screen door, like a patio door for the balcony, and you kind of clean it real good with some Windex and wipe it down, people, you know, an animal or a clueless man, they'll run through that thinking that you're going to go straight outside. But then you hit the damn door, man. It happens to beast all the time, and man alike. So guess what, man? The Most High saying that this sky that you look up at and when you see, it's not really what you think. You can't just take a rocket ship and just travel, man, and just leave. You think the Most High just has no structure and boundary in his creation, and you could just up and leave and just come and go as you please? No, you're bound by this thing, man. You're stuck here on the earth. You're here. You got to deal with it. Right? Let's go to the book of Isaiah chapter 48. Or Isaiah chapter 40, rather. Right? Let's go to Isaiah, the 40th chapter. You can't just pack up and leave. The Most High has the firmament. And I believe there are even videos of Esau or Moab shooting rockets up in the sky, and he kind of try to break that firmament, but they can't break it. And we put up commercials that they showed in time. I think it was a Hennessy commercial. And they actually show you a man going through the firmament, cracking it, and then actually dealing with water, right? Outside of the firmament. Now, this Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 22. I'm going to start at 21. Isaiah 40 and 21. "Have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth." Right? So the Most High likens and we're going to touch on the earth. He likens it into a circle, right? Even in the book of Job is likened to a clay seal, right? "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." So the Most High said the earth is like a circle, and then above that circle, he likens the firmament to a curtain of a tent. Right? To give you an example, if you look at an ancient tent, so brothers can understand some cosmology. Well, let's pull up an ancient tent. Right? Abraham kind of tent, a Lot tent, you know, where our forefathers had the pilgrimage in. Isaac, Jacob. So if you look at this tent right here, let's see. The Most High said the heavens are spread abroad like a tent. And when you walk in on the bottom, if you had like a circle mat right there, that would be where man dwells at, like grasshoppers. Like if you take a big circle rug and put it on the ground, man is within that circle like grasshoppers in the eyes of Yahawah. And above them is this structure, this expanse, this firmament where they can't leave, man. All right, this is what the Most High has. So if you know how ancient tents look, then it will help you understand what the universe, what the world calls the universe, what it's truly about. They got right here, that's the earth. When I say the earth, I'm speaking about the land masses that man dwells in. And this is your firmament, right? That's your firmament right there. So now you kind of get an understanding. Let's see if we can type in Hebrew cosmology diagram, right? To get another witness. So here's another witness of the perception, or the conception rather, of the universe. And this isn't too bad, right? This isn't too bad. So when we pull this up, Salakia, you see this right here, that firmament, Salakia. See if I can open this up and make this a little larger. All right. All right, that's not working. Salakia. All right, you can see that. It's a little more clear. So this is that right here, right? That firmament that's spread out like a tent. And it's that earth, right? The Lord said he likens it into a circle, and he spread out this firmament, and it divides these waters above from the waters below. And there's water underneath the earth, right? There's water underneath the earth. Now, these waters above the firmament are explained when you go to the Apocrypha. Let's go to the book of 2nd Ezra to show you that these waters are actually above the firmament. 2nd Ezra chapter 4. Where I want to get that in verse 7. It reads, and he said unto me, this is what the Most High told Ezra, right, via the archangel Uriel. And he said unto me, if I should ask thee how great dwellings are in the midst of the sea, or how many springs are in the beginning of the deep, or how many springs are above the firmament, or which are the outgoings of paradise, right? He said, if I were to tell you, show me how deep the ocean is, you couldn't do it. Show me all of the hot springs on the earth. You can't do it. Show me how many springs are above the sky. If you were to go through the sky, it would be springs above the firmament. Reading on. Verse 8, peradventure, thou wouldst say unto me, I never went down into the deep, meaning I can't measure the ocean. I've never been to the bottom of the ocean. Nor as yet into hell, right? I haven't been in the foundations of the earth where the water is. Neither did I climb up into heaven, meaning I haven't been above the firmament. Meaning I cannot tell you how many springs are above the firmament. But that was common knowledge. If you go to the modern day so-called white man's institutions and you bring this verse out, I would like to see what they say. Because God said that there are springs above the firmament. And guess what? We're going to believe that, man. Right? We believe it. Let the Most High be true and every man a liar, right? As it is written. Let's go to Psalms chapter 148, right? Psalms chapter 148 and verse 4. Praise him, ye heaven of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens. So that's plain. The Most High said, praise him, ye heaven of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens. So that water above the heaven serves a purpose as well that the Most High knoweth of. In Genesis 1, that firmament is dividing those waters above from those waters below, right? Verse 7. And God said, God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so, right? And the Most High called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So you have waters underneath, and you have waters above. Now, these waters that are under the firmament are about to be explained in verse 9. Right? Genesis chapter 1 and 9. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. So this is letting you know, if the Most High is saying, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, what does that mean? That means that these waters, the water that you see in the ocean now, or the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, right, what they call the Arctic Ocean, this is a result of the waters being gathered together to one place. But the Most High is letting you know, prior to Genesis 1 and 9, the waters were not gathered together unto one place. The waters were actually issued out. And you're going to read that in the book of Job. They were issued out from the earth, or the dry land earth, and they flooded the earth, not as in the time of Genesis, but they covered the earth with water. Then the Most High gathered those waters into one place, and then he let that land be seen. That's what it means, let the land appear. Because the earth and that landmass was there, but now it's appearing because the waters are being separated from the earth. We're going to read that in the book of Job. All right, let's go to the book of Job. It's like if your basement got flooded and you took all of the water and put the water in one place, and now you're able to see your basement floor, right? And the water came through the cracks of the floor. All right, if that water came through the cracks of the floor, that you wouldn't be able to see the basement floor. So you would take all of that water, put it into one place, and then you would let that floor appear. Now you're going to read that in the book of Job, the 38th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, Job gives another detailed account of the creation. All right, that's not really mentioned in other books. This is Job chapter 38 and verse 8. Right, Job 38 and 8. Or who hath shut up the sea with doors, when it break forth, as if it had issued out from the womb. So remember, Job 38 is dealing with the creation. The Most High had to shut up the sea with doors when it break forth, as if it were issued out of the womb. During the time of the creation, the Most High is letting you know what Genesis 1 and 9 is going into, about these waters being gathered together into one place. The Lord likens it unto a woman giving birth. Like the earth is the mother, and the water, because there's water under the earth. Remember, your concept of the earth, and it's been ruled over by the so-called white man for so long, and we don't really understand what the Most High has done. You have different spots where there's fire under the earth, and you have different spots where there's water under the earth. Right? There's actual, when you go to the account of Genesis, the 7th chapter, the Most High likens or kick the flood off by actually getting that water from under the earth and shooting it forth. So those waters in Genesis were issued out. All right, let's get that in the book of Genesis, the 7th chapter. All right, let's go to Genesis chapter 7. All right, we're going to deal with this. Genesis chapter 7. And that's where the concept or the word floodgates come from. Right? A floodgate. They say the floodgates have been broken. They may be talking about a dam or a barrier to not let the water go through, but there are spots on the earth that have natural floodgates. That's why if you go to a spot where they have a geyser, the Most High let loose those floodgates. Right, let me pull that up. And there are floodgates underneath the water, because you have hot springs underneath the ocean. See that? A geyser is a spring where water is ejected out of the earth. So in Genesis 1, when the waters were gathered into one place, the Most High issued that water out like it came from the womb. And then he separated that water from the earth. And the barriers of these land masses are based off also how much water it is, man, or the boundaries rather. So these are floodgates being broken. That's why you have geysers. All right, you have geysers under the water. See if they actually pull that up. An underwater geyser. Right, Esau calls them a hydrothermal vent. Our geysers located on the ocean floor in the deep sea. They spew hot water for the same reasons that land-based geysers do. Right, because there's heat underneath the earth too, man. You know, just like a mother's womb. It's warm, it's hot, you know, and those waters come out hot, man. Right, those waters come out hot. That's what a geyser is. Now, when you go to Genesis chapter 7 and verse 11, it reads, "And the 600th year of Noah's life, and the second month, and the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened." So we always go into this, right? You may say, well, how did the earth flood in 40 days and 40 nights with rain? It wasn't just rain from the clouds. Rain from the clouds is not enough to flood the earth in 40 days and 40 nights. You also had the fountains of the great deep that were broken up. The great deep is speaking about the water underneath the earth. The Most High broke up the earth and let that water that's inside the earth come out and also help flood the earth. And you also had the windows of heaven that were opened. So you have floodgates in the heavens where the Most High can open up particular spots within that firmament and let water come down too. So you have water coming from there, from above. You had the water from the clouds, and you had the water issuing out from the earth. Right? That's how the flood happened for 40 days and 40 nights. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So the great deep was broken up. You had the rain, and you had windows of heaven. Now, when you go back to Genesis, the first chapter, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place. We're reading that in the book of Job, the 38th chapter. It says, or who, Job 38 and 8, or who who shut up the sea with doors, when it break forth as if it issue out of the womb. So the Most High had that water come out, then he sealed it up. When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it. So that's the poetry of water being issued out. Like a newborn baby, like when a baby come out, you swaddle it up and you wrap it up. So the Lord said when that water came up, the clouds were there and that thick darkness was there. Right? Let's see, when I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it. Right? Because clouds and the water underneath the earth, the water from the oceans, they're teammates, man. They go hand in hand. Right, let's get this real quick. A swaddling band or a navel band. Right? A swathing cloth. You see that? It says, when I made the cloud its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band, a figurative of dark clouds enveloping the sea. So when the Lord issued that water out, he had those clouds there above. Now those clouds, they absorb the water. Everybody knows that, right? What the so-called white man calls the hydrogen cycle, right? You have evaporation, and then I believe you have condensation, then precipitation, then you have runoff, and then you have accumulation. This is how the clouds and the waters work hand in hand. All right. Then the Most High said, let the dry land appear, and it was so. So he separated the waters from the earth, or the waters from that dry land. Let's go to 2 Peter chapter 3 real quick. Right? 2 Peter, it's like the third chapter, and I want to go to verse 5. right? 2 Peter chapter 3 and 5. Like I said, when you're dealing with the account of Genesis, you can't just read it straight through, right? You have to link up these precepts with it, man. Right? Because other men brought out particular accounts to help add to your understanding. 2 Peter 3 and 5. I'm going to start at 3 and 4. And saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from what? From the beginning of the creation. So he's about to reference something from the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and what? And the earth standing out of the water and in the water. You see that? The earth standing out of the water and in the water. So the Most High had that dry land appear and removed that water from the earth and gathered it together into one place. When you read the book of Job, he says he hangs the earth upon the waters. Right? I want to get this in the Apocrypha. Let's go to 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. Right? 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, and I want 59. All right, 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, and verse 59. It reads, let's see. I want 57. He searcheth the deep and the treasures thereof. He hath measured the sea and what it containeth. He hath shut the sea in the midst of the waters. And with his word hath he hanged the earth upon the waters. You see that? So the earth is hanged upon the waters. Right? So that dry land that you see is literally hung upon the waters. All right? So that's plain. That's what 2 Peter chapter 3 said, the earth out of the water and in the water. Because the Lord gathered all of that water into one place, and then he let that dry land appear. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And the Most High saw that it was good. So that firmament divided the waters above from the waters below, but the waters from below had to issue out and be gathered together into one place. And then he had to move out the way so the earth could be seen. All right. And he said he called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the water calleth he seas. All right. Verse 11. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. So this is dealing with the third day, right? The Most High brought forth grass. Now, when you go to 2nd Ezra, it gives a detailed account. The Most High speaks of fruit, vegetables, odors, smells. These things were also made on the third day outside of grass at fruit trees, man. 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter. Let's go back to that. Like I said, 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Outside of Genesis and Job is probably one of the better accounts of the creation. Right? As Ezra complains and the bitterness of his soul, man. So check this out, right? 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse, let's see, verse, oh, look, Slacky, I missed this part right here. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and 42. Upon the third day, thou didst command that the waters should be gathered in the 7th part of the earth. 6 parts hast thou dried up and kept them, to the intent that of these some being planted of the Most High until it might serve thee. So you have 6 parts of the earth of dry land, and then the 7th part of the earth is where the water is. Right, you see that? That's why you have what they call North America, South America, so-called Australia, Asia or Europe. You got Africa, so-called Africa, Greenland. You got all of these different large land masses on the earth. these 6 parts, right? And Esau calls them continents. He calls them continents. Then he says the 7th continent is Antarctica, right? And that's a whole nother topic for another day. Verse 43. For as soon as thy word went forth, the work was made. For immediately there was great and innumerable fruit, and many and diverse pleasures for the taste, and flowers of unchangeable color, and odors of wonderful smell. And this was done the 3rd day. So fruits, odors, a lot of the various colors, these things were all made day 3. Day 3. Before animals and man were made, Moses had trees and fruit, man, and grass, and wonderful smells. This was not GMO fruit. It wasn't a toxic fruit. It wasn't fruit that you get. Man, I had some fruit in my refrigerator, man. You know, I kind of ate some. You know, sometimes you forget it's still in there. And I kind of left it in there on purpose to see if it would change colors. And the fruit took about 4 weeks just to finally turn brown, man. So I know where not to get fruit from, even though it's hard in this captivity. But nowadays, man, you barely know what you're eating, man. You eat an apple and bite into it, and damn near you go back and it grows itself, man. It regenerates like you never even bit into it. Or you bite an apple and it takes 4 weeks to turn brown, just sitting there. Even fruit flies, they used to hover around fruit. Now you bite into a fruit and leave it out. Even flies don't want to be around it, man. Fruit flies, they don't even want to be around leftover fruit, man. You know, because they know. Man may not know, but even a fruit fly will let you know, hey, look, that's off. I'm not dealing with that. I don't know what you got in this kitchen now, but I'm out. And they'll freak off and go somewhere else, man. You know? You buy an apple, the apple smell like damn chemicals. You buy your orange, the orange smell like a grape. You eat a grape and it tastes like a mango. You got hybrid fruits, cross fruits, experiments, new fruits. All right. I mean, it's absolute madness now, man. Let's see. I should have typed in hybrid. Look at this. 14 hybrid fruits worth trying. Look at pluot. Right? I'm not sure what that is. A plumcot. I would assume that's a plum and an apricot. A rangpur. Maybe that's I can't call that one. A tangelo. A tangerine. Right? A blood lime. A tayberry. Rabbit. Right? And, you know, we're not dealing with this, man. What did the Most High make a rangpur? And a tangelo? A Tom Tato. Look at this. That's sick. A UK-based horticulturalist, right? That hortus really goes back to gardening and farming. Culturalist company has developed the Tom Tato, a plant that can produce both tomatoes and potatoes on the same stem. So that's off, man. Right? That's evil. Now you say, well, it's just fruit. Get over it. It's not that big of a deal. Well, when did the Most High say do these things, man? Right? It tells you straight up and down in the law about gendering with diverse cattle, diverse garments, and diverse seeds. Right? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19. Right? Leviticus, the 19th chapter. And I want to go back to that. Right? Let's go right into the law. And the law covers nature, right? Covers land Sabbaths, uncircumcised fruit trees, how to deal with different elements, how to deal with nature, beasts, birds. Leviticus 19 and 19. Ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. I mean, you can't take your sheep and have it deal with a goat. Can't have your horse deal with a zebra, a lion and a tiger, right? Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed. Neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee. Right? So they have a pluot, a plum and an apricot, a plum cot, a ring pur, okay, they got ring purs. A tangelo is a cross between tangerines and grapefruits. Bloodline, right? A tangerine and grapefruit. A tayberry. They combine blackberries and raspberries, man. I called it a tayberry. Rabbage is cabbage and radish. A limequat is lime and a kumquat, right? So we're not dealing with these diverse, strange fruits because those are new things in the earth, man. But the Most High has specific fruits that it created in its specific time. So going back to the account in Genesis, the first chapter. And the key point, it says, and the fruit yielding fruits, like in the fruit tree, yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself. So again, back then, all fruit had seeds in it, right? Every fruit had seeds in it, right? Bananas, oranges, apple, everything had seeds. And it's really a rare thing if you could buy a fruit now with a seed in it. It may be $50, man. Hand over fist to buy that seed or that fruit with seeds in it. And Esau keep that stuff in his neighborhoods. And Jake, you got to eat the GMO, Monsanto, pesticide infested food. And Esau got all of the damn fruit with trees in it, man, or seeds in it. Genesis 1 and verse 12. And the earth brought forth, it's like, let me see, bear with me where I'm at with time. Okay, good time. All right, all praise. So Genesis 1 and 12. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. Right? And the Most High said, or the Alahayim, like we broke it down, Yahawah shine the angels, said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. So remember, these lights are what? The sun, the moon, and the stars. And they are inside the firmament. They're not some trillions of miles away. And this lets you know that the earth isn't revolving around the sun, because the sun is inside of the firmament of the earth, which contradicts another point of the so-called white man, because he believes that the sun was created first and then the earth was made after that. Right? Let's see if we could pull that up. What was made first? The sun or the earth? Let's see what Esau says. See that? The sun formed first from the vast material with the planets close behind. Right? And that's not true at all. That's why we have to be born again. Right? Not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, right? By the word of the Most High. Because your whole concept of everything is off. Esau is actually an idiot. I'm going to just call it straight up and call it what it is. He's a fool. He's on a low level. You may say, well, my IQ, that's not real. That's something that Esau made up. That IQ test is Esau's thing. That's how a white man thinks. So it's predicated to his mind, to his mentality. You know, we're worried about the spiritual things, the works of Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua. Don't put your head down because you're not on par with the so-called white man's understanding. You can run circles around him, man, with concepts going into the creation, with knowing your nationality, right? These are simple things that overthrow the wise. Let's go to the book of 1 Corinthians real quick. Let me get a quick precept on that. This double and dummy said that the sun was created first, right? What a fool. What the Mosai said otherwise, man. The Mosai said the earth was made first, and the sun is inside the firmament of the earth, bound to serve the earth, not the earth serving the sun. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 18. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool that he may be wise. So if you think you're wise in this world, you have your degrees and you're a PhD and a Rhodes Scholar, you went to Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and Yale, and you have your degree with your certificate in your bedroom, the Lord said, hey, if you really want to be wise, you better let all that go. You better be a fool, right? So that you can learn true wisdom. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with the Most High. For it is written, he taketh the wise and their own craftiness. So the wisdom of this world is madness, man. They say you come from monkeys. There's a big bang. The sun was made first. You're a nigger, an African American. This devil says the sun is going to explode. They say the sun is actually going to freeze. Now check this out. Will the sun freeze? This stuff is ridiculous. Look at this. Something less than 2%. I don't know how they got that number. Of the sun's material will freeze at reasonable temperatures. Right? I mean, this is just outright ridiculous. Look at this. The next big freeze could last 250 years. All right. Let's see. Will the sun explode? It's like I spelled that wrong. Here's when the sun will die. Now, where's the account of the sun dying? Right? The sun is kind of, running its course. Then it kind of slowed down. The sun running out of gas. Right? The sun is struggling to get the noonday, man, to get to the peak. And the moon is getting old. Right? And now it's only half moons, no more full moons, because that exerts too much strength from the moon. So now you only have half moons and no hot days because the sun is dying. Stop the madness, man. Like I said, don't believe the hype with the so-called white man. While the full death of the sun is still true, and why would you even want to conceive such a notion? Where do you get off on even putting that out there that the sun is going to go away trillions of years from now, man? What do you gain out of that? Just destructive. Esau's just destructive, man. While the full death of the sun is still trillions, and how can you calculate trillions of years away? How can you calculate that? He just throws wild numbers at Jake and the nations, man. And wow, trillions of years, not billions, not millions, but trillions. He just throws these wild numbers at you that he can't even prove to cover his tracks, man, because you can't track this. Because if he was to say like 5 years, you could kind of wait 5 years, 10 years, but you can't track trillions of years. So he could just throw that number out there and overthrow you. While this full death of the sun is still trillions of years away, some scientists believe the current phase of the sun will end as soon as 5 billion years from now. And I want to know some of these scientists, who these guys are. These idiots, these fools who believe that the sun has 5 billion years left. Right? Madness, man. Right? Absolute madness. How to survive if the sun explodes. Right? Within a few days. So we're not dealing with this, man. The Most High created these lights to be forever. Let's go to Jeremiah 31st chapter. Right? We're not, and that's something I remember growing up. I remember on the History Channel I used to watch when I was young. In the world, I think like in middle school, high school, they'll have these different documentaries or these TV specials, how the earth will look in the year 3000, or what will happen if you didn't stop climate change, and the oceans, the ice in the ocean caused water elevation to rise, and what should we do? And what will happen if the sun gives out? And you're watching it like, God damn, man. Well, what if the sun gives out? What if we are overpopulated? What if all of the ice does melt? And it puts fear in you, man, to take the word of Esau as the word of God. You know, I remember watching that stuff, man, and kind of getting worried. Right? Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse, let's see, 37. Thus saith the Lord. Well, really 35. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. So the sun gives light in the day, the moon gives light in the night. And sunlight has its benefits, right? Sunlight helps with the immune system. Sunlight helps with what scholars call vitamin D. Sunlight helps with your melanin. It gives you energy. It helps plants grow with photosynthesis. Sunlight serves a purpose. The moon has a purpose. Now, the details of the moonlight aren't really mentioned, but they say the moon helps regulate your blood flow. Right? And the moon, if your woman is on her flower, it helps regulate her flower. Some women even call their flower their moon. Oh, I'm on my moon. Oh, it's around that time of the month. I mean, it's around that time of the moon. Right? So the moon serves its different purposes too. Regulates tides. Certain creatures, they breed based off of the moon. If it's a full moon, okay, we're going to breed. Certain farmers plant their seeds around the time of a full moon. So the moonlight has a purpose. The sunlight has a purpose. And really the sun, when you read the Bible, is likened unto a man. It's masculine, and the moon is feminine. Right? Verse 36. If those ordinances depart from before me, said the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. So if you were to destroy the sun and the moon, then Israel would be destroyed. But we know we're not going to be destroyed because the Most High said the days of Israel are innumerable. Right? It's Sirach 37 and verse 25. Right? Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 43, dealing with the sun and the moon. Right? And no, the moon will not blow up. Right? I remember that movie Time Machine with Tom Cruise. You watched that movie and the moon exploded, man. And they had the moon into this everlasting division of 3 parts. Right? This is Sirach chapter 43 and verse 1. The pride of the height, the clear firmament, the beauty of heaven with his glorious show. So Ecclesiastes chapter 43 gives you a detailed account of the works that are inside of the firmament, starting off with the sun, right? The sun, when it appeareth, declaring at its rising, a marvelous instrument of the Most High. At noon it parcheth the country, and who can abide the burning heat thereof? Right? Verse 5, let me get straight to the point. I'll read on to 4. A man blowing a furnace is in works of heat. But the sun burneth the mountains 3 times more. So the sun gives off that heat, breathing out fiery vapors, and sendeth forth bright beams, it dimmeth the eyes. Great is the Lord that made it. And here's the point. And at his commandment, it runneth hastily. So the sun moves within inside of the firmament of the earth. Sometimes it's up high, right? And wide. Sometimes it's down low and close, like in the summertime. Sometimes it gets like this, then it rotates up, then it comes back down. That's how, and then the moon does the same thing. Sometimes the moon is down closer, sometimes the moon is further apart, right? That's the moon and the sun that go in cycles. Yes, the sun revolves within the firmament of the earth. Contrary to the so-called white man who believes in a heliocentric concept of the universe, where the sun is the center of it all, right? Which is not biblical. First Ezra chapter 4 and 34. O ye men, are not women strong? Great is the earth, high is the heaven. Swift is the sun in its course. When you run a course, you have a starting point and a finishing point. For he compasseth the heavens round about, and fetcheth his course again to his own place in one day. So it takes the sun roughly about 12 hours to finish that course. Yahawah said, are there not 12 hours in a day? Right? And that's just on a so-called good day. We know it varies. That's what we say, roughly about 12 hours to finish that course. Right? And then the moon serves its purpose. Then the moon runs its course. Now, can you see the sun moving? Oh, you may not see the sun moving, right? But it's moving within the firmament of the earth. All right? Like I said, the earth does not revolve around the sun. You are not moving. What do they say? How fast is the earth rotating? Let's see. How fast? Sometimes I just like to look this stuff up to bring about the folly of Esau. It's the earth spinning. All right, let's see this madness. And this is ridiculous. Look at this. At the equator, its circumference is roughly 40,000 kilometers. So dividing this by the length of the day means at the equator, the earth is spinning at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. Right, let's do kilometers to miles. Right? Let's see, 1670. Let's just do the math. Right? I'm not too familiar with kilometers, but let's do, it's lucky, let's do the math. Let's see, 16. Look at that. Just over 1,000 miles per hour. Right? Nobody, that's not happening. You're not moving. You would know that. Moving 1,000 miles per hour. 1,000 miles per hour all the time, every time. Where does Esau get this stuff from, huh? Like I said, he's just making it up. He's making it up as it goes along because the Bible says it's inside the firmament. And it's for signs, like an omen, like a blood moon. That's a sign that violence and destruction is coming on the earth. You understand? You have signs of an eclipse. You have various times of the year. You have days, you have years. That's what the sun and moon serve. The sun has a cycle that it rotates on throughout a year, around 365.25 days. Then you have the moon that runs in its cycle, a lunar cycle. There are 12 moons and a so-called lunar year, and that operates at around 354.11 days. So that's how the cycles of the course of the sun and the moon within one so-called year. And they operate on their respective hours and serve their different purposes based off of the light that they emit. All right. Verse 15. And let them be for light and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And Yahawah or Allahayim, right, made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, right? So the greater light is the man, which is the sun. The lesser light is the woman, which is the moon. And you have the stars. And the stars, they run in their respective constellation. You can read about these different star patterns that the Most High made in the book of Job. Arcturus, Pleiades, Orion, right? These are different constellations that the Most High made in a respective season. All right. And that'll be a whole nother breakdown as well for another day. Let me see how much time I got. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 17. And the Most High set them in the firmament, remember, inside the firmament. And remember, Esau says that the star is the only, or the sun rather. Let me make sure I got it straight. He says the sun is the only star and what he calls the solar system. So what are all these other stars at night? And then he says the sun is 93 million miles away. So if the sun is some odd 93 million miles away, and that's the only star, where are all of these other stars? And why are they so close? Stars are not, like I said, just totally get rid of your understanding of astronomy and cosmology alike when it comes to dealing with the Bible. Whatever you learn from the so-called white man, you'll have to get rid of it, man, or you'll bug yourself out. You're going to bug yourself out. And it's not going to make sense when it comes to breaking these scriptures down. You have to let him go. Let Esau go. Let his understanding of salvation go. Let his understanding of who you are goes. Let his understanding of peace go. Let his understanding of the creation, let it go, man. And be born again in the renewing of your mind. That's Romans 12 and 2, man. Let it go. Start fresh. Let's go to Romans 12 and 2. You got to start with a clean slate in this thing, man. And what we're going over now is what our forefathers already knew. It was like backhand knowledge. They knew those things, man. Now we have to work hard to obtain and read the precepts and line it up and say, hold on, that doesn't line up to what you're saying, Esau. Right? Classic, right? Romans chapter 12 and 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Most High. So you can't be conformed to the world in sin, even in knowledge, right? These are the things that you have to get rid of when it comes to you coming out of the world. You have to, go through this metamorphosis, man, and renew your complete mentality when it comes to grasping information that you have acquired when you was in the world, and let that go. The Most High likens that to old wine. Did not the Most High say in Matthew 9 and 16, neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break and the wine runneth out? But they put new wine into new bottles, and it preserveth both the bottle and the wine, paraphrasing. Right? So you want to have that new bottle to receive new wine. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 17. And the Most High set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And the Most High saw that it was good. Let's go back to first Esdras. Right? Let's go back to first Esdras. So we touched on the sun, and we vaguely touched on the moon, but I want to touch a little bit on the moon back in Ecclesiastes chapter 43, which deals with the moon. All right. And it's different phases that it goes through. This is Sirach chapter 43 and verse 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season. See, the moon is likened unto a her. And then a man, it's like we brought out earlier, the sun is likened unto a his, at his rising and the moon is her season, because the sun dominates. He's the larger light. The sun is larger than the moon. That's why it says he has a greater light and a lesser light. That shows you there's even order and decree instruction in the armies of heaven, right? He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times and a sign of the world, right? For the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. So based off of these 12 moons that operate, you know what season you're in. Like around the time of the 7th month, that's around what they call the harvest moon. Or you know around that time, it's the Feast of Tabernacles. So your feast days are predicated off of the moon, right? Because they operate within these 12 moons. And a light that decreaseth in her perfection. So the moon, when it is perfected, it begins to decrease in light. But it has to get built up to be perfected in light. Like anything has to be built up in light. We have to be built up in light. You understand? Children have to be built up in light. Seeds that are planted, they have to grow and be built up with the sunlight. But once you're perfected, you kind of decrease in light. All right. Verse 8. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing. So the word month goes back to the word moon, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. So the moon starts off in what they call a dark moon or a new moon. Then it increases in light. Then it's perfected. Then it decreases in light. Right? That's plain. Just like you're supposed to increase in light. You started off in darkness, but when you understand the earth and the concept of the Most High's creation, you're looking at the moon, and every night you're looking at the moon increase in light. And you should be examining yourself and seeing if every night when the day is over, have you increased in light? Huh? All right? Are you being perfected? These are the things that the earth and the sun and the moon teach you. The ants teach you things. The moon teaches you. The sun, right? You have so many different teachers. And these teachers are the works of Yahawah, right? Man and beast alike. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. Verse 20. And the power said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So birds, right? Bats, ducks, pigeons, doves, they were all made from the water, right? They all came out the water. Yes, birds were made out of the water. They resemble a fish, man. They're just like fish. They both eat worms. They both lay eggs. They both have wings, or fish have fins, right? But birds have wings, right? They're the same creature. One's above and just one, and one is below. You know, even when you go into their embryonic structure and the anatomy of them, you know, as they begin to develop, they're pretty much the same. Let's go to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, right? 2nd Ezra chapter 6, to touch on this 5th day, in which all creatures that are in the waters were made. 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 47. Upon the 5th day, thou saidest unto the 7th part, right, which are the waters, where the waters were gathered, that it should bring forth living creatures, fowls and fishes, right? These are the creatures that were made on the 5th day, fowls and fishes. And it's lucky. And so it came to pass. For the dumb water and without life brought forth living things at the commandment of the Most High, that all people might praise thy wondrous works. Then didst thou ordain 2 living creatures. The one thou callest Enoch, and the other Leviathan. Right, so you have Leviathan, which is a sea creature, and Enoch goes into Behemoth, that you read about in the book of Job, the 40th chapter. 2 giant creatures, one for the earth and one for the heavens. and did it separate them one from the other. For the seventh part, namely where the water was gathered together, might not hold them both. So these creatures are so large that one has to be in the earth and one has to be in the heavens. I mean, one has to be in the waters. Unto Enoch thou gavest one part which was dried up the third day, that he should dwell in the same part wherein are 1,000 hills. And where is this beast at now? Right? Esau, you're looking for Sasquatch and Bigfoot. Where's Behemoth? See, there are certain places that the so-called white man has never even been to. Right? Verse 52. But unto Leviathan thou gavest the seventh part, namely the moist, and hast kept him to be devoured, of whom thou wilt and when. So the Most High gave Leviathan the seventh part, meaning the waters. Right? Let's go back to Genesis, the first chapter. Genesis 1-21. Right? And the powers created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. So birds and fishes were made on that day. And the powers blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. So you had crabs that were made, shrimp, lobster, salmon, right? Oysters, clams, all of those were made in the waters. Verse 23. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And the Most High said, let the earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. Right? So sheep, rams, goats, oxen, they were all made. Creeping things, ants, spiders, right? Scorpions, snakes, they were all made on that day. Beasts, lions, tigers, bears. And the powers made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind. Like you got yaks, you got oxen, you got all these different types of creatures. You got bulls, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. Centipedes, millipedes, roaches, mice. They were all made. And the Most High saw that it was good. And when the Most High saw a centipede, he said that was good. See, Jake, now you look at the centipede and you're running out the room and you're smashing it with every shoe and you're spraying it with God knows what, man. Which, of course, you don't want to be around one, but the Most High said, hey, guess what? That's good, man. You got nations that eat stuff like that. And the Most High had clean animals and unclean animals, man. Even our forefathers knew that. Noah put clean animals in the ark by sevens and unclean animals in the ark by twos. Verse 26. And again, the same elements out the these animals have in them are some of the same minerals and elements we have, and it shows that we're made out of the earth. Right? Verse 25. It's like in verse 26. And Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every slakia, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So man is made in the image of the Most High. Remember, the image and the likeness are different things. The likeness is going into you having hands, fingers, a head, shoulders, a neck, a torso, right? Thighs, feet. That's the likeness. The image is more so a spiritual thing. Like we're made in the image of Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua with the ability to be upright, to be righteous. There's a reason why we can keep the commandments, right? There's a reason. We're not saying we're perfect, but there's a reason why our spirit is naturally inclined, or there's a reason why our spirit has the ability, rather, to keep instruction from God and from the Most High. And beast doesn't. Beast isn't made after the image of the Most High. A beast does not have the ability to uphold structure and order given to him by the Most High. That's the difference between man and beast. right? We have the same organs. We have the same bones. We have a lot of the similarities, but the main difference is the creation of the image, which separates man from beast, right? When you go to Romans, the 8th chapter, the Lord likens us to being conformed to the image of his son, Yahawah, right? Romans chapter 8. Let's deal with it. This is the book of Romans chapter 8 and verse 29. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So the elect, whoever these men are, they have been conformed, meaning molded, to be made like unto Yahawah, to love their brethren, to teach their people, to be a servant, to prophesy, to make their body a sacrifice, to magnify the name of the Most High. These are the different things that Yahawah did. So either you're made into the image of his son, and all man was made, really the elect rather, they're the ones made to be conformed to the image of his son. But even the other nations outside of Esau, they can keep the commandments. Now, even some Edomites, they can do it for a period of time, but there's only so long that they can keep the commandments. You have Edomites that say, like, I'm not eating pork, I know I'm a heathen, I keep the Sabbath, but they're only doing that out of pretense, and they can only do it for so long. So all nations really can keep the commandments, but Esau, he can only do it for so long until he turns into the devil. Well, I would say it's still his devil horn show. He already is the devil. All right, let's get another precept on that. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3. All right, Colossians chapter 3 and verse 11. Right, Colossians chapter 3 and verse 11. Get a few more, we're going to wind down. It reads, it's like 3 and 10. And have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So also being made in the image of the Most High, it's the knowledge that you hold within your vessel. Because when you're made in the image of the Most High, your knowledge should be based off of who created you, not off of the so-called white man. Your knowledge should be based off of the creator and not the creature. The Lord condemns that strongly in Romans, the 1st chapter, whereas he says, who worship and serve the creature more than the creator. So even your knowledge, your thought process, as best as it can, has to be modeled after the image of him that created him, not after the image of the creature, Esau. A lot of people are conformed to the image of the beast and not the image of the Most High. Genesis chapter 1 and reading on. Let us make man, right? Yahawah and angels, after our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. This is why fish aren't calling the shots. That's why you jump into the water, a school of fish, they'll scatter at your presence. Squirrels, they'll flee from you. Birds. Now, we've kind of lost a little bit of that dominion now, because there was a time when you weren't being attacked by these creatures. Adam and Enoch and Noah, they wasn't getting attacked by wild lions. And they could tell a lion to go south and the lion to go south. They'll tell a bird. Noah was sending out doves and ravens. He didn't go to bird training school. Where's the account of Noah going to bird training school to send out a dove multiple times, and the dove came back obedient, and a raven? And all those animals in the ark were subdued because we had that ability back then. Now you're running from pit bulls. You're trying to catch a damn mosquito. You're calling a dog whisperer to help you train your dog. Your cat just disobeys you. But there was a time when all of these creatures obeyed man. And then the kingdom, when you read the book of Isaiah, the 11th chapter, it's going to get back to that estate, man. And even the creeping things obeyed you. Now the creeping things, they violate your personal space. They're eating your food, right? Verse 27. So the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So men and women were created at the same time. A great multitude of males and a great multitude of females. Not side, what they call them, side gender, cis. I don't even know if I could bring those terms out. They'll flag the channel, man. All of these various genders and identities that people go by now, there's only male and female, man. And the Most High blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So no abortions, no contraceptives, right? Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And the Most High said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, and the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. Because remember, man and beast, they both ate, they were vegetarians, right? They didn't eat beast until after the flood. And it didn't even rain till after the flood. Or really during the flood. That's when it started raining. But guess what? You know, the old world, the elder world was a lot different. The elder world, it didn't rain. There was a mist that came up in the ground. The elder world was a world where the beast obeyed you. The elder world, even your diet was different. You didn't eat venison and beef and turkey, right? You ate the herbs. And fruit was a lot bigger back then, right? Trees were taller. Beasts were larger. Man was more exalted. That's the elder world. Those days are beyond us now. Now we're in this world, man, this flesh. When you're 5'6", with a dog that disobeys you, and a woman who's telling you what to do, man. And now you're working for the white man. So we fell. The sons of God have surely fallen. The Most High said, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And the Most High saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Right? But with that, I'm going to have to close up. Giving, of course, all honor and glory to Yahawah by Shema Mashiach Malak Yabushai. This is Genesis chapter 1 breakdown and the secret of the creation. Lord willing, I could do a Genesis chapter 2 breakdown later this week, and then possibly Genesis chapter 3, Genesis 4, and see where we go from there in the spirit and power of Yahawah by Shema Yabushai. Again, Most High, when he was edified. Kwam Yashala. Shalom.